Everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 4 of the book of Boba Fett. And so, this show has gotten even more complicated to talk about because the fan reaction has been largely mixed so far. Episode 1 was received like, oh, I don't know, some people were really down on it, some people were okay with where it was going because it was just the setup episode, the first episode. Episode 2 was seemingly beloved by everyone. Everyone like who was doubting it kind of got on board with episode 2. And then episode 3, of course, you had the big, I'm going to put this in quotes, controversy about the bikes and how colorful they were and how clean they were. And, how the speeder chase was, sorry, how the speeder chase was like really slow and it wasn't edited that well, which admittedly, it wasn't. The speeder chase was pretty lame, actually. I will admit that. So this show has gotten kind of mixed signals from a lot of, a lot of people are just kind of on uneasy ground. Some people don't like the direction that they're taking Boba Fett. They think that he's kind of gotten soft, which, funnily enough, they do address in this episode a little bit. So that's kind of funny. It's just this thing where it's like, because this show is being released weekly, any kind of criticisms people have about it, they just sit there for a full 7 days and they just stew, they just like if the bikes bothered you, you don't get to just move on to the next episode and keep going. Like if the bikes bother you, then you're kind of just living with those bikes for 7 full days, and people are making YouTube videos just about the bikes and how the bikes were lame and how, and then people are making these tweets that get, 5,000, 10,000, quote tweets or likes or whatever, and it becomes like a thing on the internet because, it's you have to wait a full week before the next thing happens, so you have nothing left to do but to just stew in this thing that bothered you. So, this show's gotten more complicated to talk about because it's like, it's just, I try to watch the show now, especially this episode. I was like, all right, I'm going to go into this episode trying to ignore the conversation around it because I want the show to just be the show and that's all I'm absorbing, right? But like watching the show, watching this new episode, I can't help but be like, okay, how are people going to react to this? And how are people going to feel about this part? And it's just like this constant, like, is this messing with the show now? Because I can't ignore the outside conversation that, all this noise that's happening. I don't know, maybe. But anyways, let's get to the episode. Obviously, full spoiler review, blah, 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 right? Okay, so first things first. This is like a 48 minute episode, so that's good. That's good for a lot of people. Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people were complaining about like it needs to be longer, they need to be like hour-long episodes, which I do agree that the present day events, the present day plot has not like advanced enough. It feels like it should be further along. So yeah, I want longer episodes, right? But I think this is going to be the first thing that bothers a lot of people on Twitter. This is like my immediate thought was like, okay, the majority of this episode, like 85% of this episode is in the flashbacks. The last like maybe 10 minutes or so is in the present day. And to be honest, while I was watching it, I was getting kind of scared. Like, is this full episode going to be nothing but the flashbacks? Which I'm fine with because this is the show, And by the way, it feels like no one's saying this, but like there was this whole wave, this whole contingent of the fandom that are like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are gonna save Star Wars. It's gonna be like, those are our saviors. Those are our only hope, because they didn't like the sequels or whatever, right? And this is Jon and Dave's show. Jon Favreau wrote every single one of these episodes, I think, so that is one thing. It's like, this is the show that he wanted it to be. This full episode is flashbacks. And, part of me is like, could they have shown him save Fennec Shand, get the armor back and the ship back, all within like maybe 15 minutes? Yeah, they probably could have. But instead, they took, 35 minutes to show like he saves her. He takes her to this place to, this techno club place where, instead of getting tattoos, the youth are getting augmented, right? Which makes sense for Star Wars. First of all, that makes all the sense in the world. And the music, they're playing like this kind of techno beat type of music while Fennec Shand is getting operated on. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, excuse me. Anyways, they're playing like this techno beat music, which I can, that's another thing I can imagine people are bothered with. Like, oh, this techno stuff. It's just more of those biker kids with their, maybe it doesn't fit quite with Tatooine. But to be completely honest, we've only ever seen Tatooine either from Moisture Farmer side or from like the Junk Trader side. We've never actually seen like, wait a minute, what are the 18 to 22 year olds of Tatooine actually doing on Tatooine every day? Like they're not all hanging out on Tashi Station. They're not all the children of moisture farmers. Some of them surely are just doing something else. It's a full planet. Like something else has to be happening with the youth of Tatooine. And now our answer is that like, okay, they're listening to this like kind of techno beat music and they're getting augmented. They're gonna get robot arms and robot eyes and all kinds of stuff. Like that's what they're doing. And I know some people are gonna say this look pretty Spy Kids, and maybe some of it did, right? I think especially the glasses kind of remind me, this one guy had like robot eyes, and yes, it was a little bit of Spy Kids, sure. But anyways, yeah, basically what I'm saying is this episode didn't just like fast forward to present day. I mean, it kind of did at the end, but we show him fixing Fennec Shand and then making a deal with her and then getting a ship, and then they gotta sneak in there and they gotta make a plan and they gotta, it's a whole thing. This episode took its time and told the story. I think that's the thing. So as much as I want forward progression on the main plot, which we do eventually get in this episode, it is like, I just have to acknowledge like, okay, this is the story. It's not moving at the pace I want it to move. It's not, like just going forward, because it feels like all of these flashbacks, especially now that he's saved Fennec Shand, we can kind of just do guesswork at. Like, okay, we know what happens, but now they're showing us how it happened. You know what I mean? And I think that's what's frustrating a lot of people, is because so many of us only care about the what. It's like, okay, what happened? He saved Fennec Shand, they worked together to get his armor back in Mando Season 2, and that's what happened. But now they're showing us how. They're showing us how she got the stomach. They're showing us how he got his ship back. They're showing us how they ended up making this deal to basically be best friends and work together to create the Zone Daima. Which, by the way, we finally get like what his motivations are. And essentially, it boils down to the fact that like, he was a bounty hunter for years. And, he's like, how many missions did we go on jobs for that were completely avoidable? But because the people in charge were so goddamn stupid, they hired a bunch of bounty hunters to do it. Basically what he's saying is like, so many of our people get killed by the idiots in charge. I should be in charge, which honestly, that's very relatable. You know what I mean? How many of us out there work at jobs where we're like, you know what? How are the bosses making these decisions? How is the management doing this or that? I could have easily made a better decision. That it's so clear that was a stupid thing to do, and that's basically where Boba Fett's coming from, and he's also, and like I said, they address like the softness. He talks about how, he wants Fennec Shand to help him because, she's got mind and brains and muscle, and he's gonna need a tribe, and she's like, working with the Sand People has made you soft, right? It's like, no, it made me stronger. You can only get so far without a tribe, and that's like the main lesson he took away from the Sand People, was that working together, cooperating, having this, making your own little family, you can accomplish so much more together. and you can survive longer together. You know, obviously he ended up getting he says he ended up getting the Sand People massacred, which really sucks, but he got his revenge. You know, he got the gunship, and he killed all the bikers as they were going. So that was actually really nice to see the bikers get killed. Oh, real quick about the gunship though, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but yeah, they do call it, he says, can you help me get my fire spray gunship, right? So the way that he phrases it, he is just talking about what kind of ship he has. Okay, can you help me get my fire spray gunship? He didn't say, can you help me get fire spray gunship, my ship? It's like, what I mean is, like, he was describing it, the phrasing was like, okay, this is the type of ship it is, not the name of the ship. So it feels like they still haven't fully addressed the name. It's like he doesn't have a name for it, and that seems to be the answer. It's like, instead of referring to it by name, he didn't say, can you help me get Slave One? He said, can you help me get my, it would be like, instead of if I was like, can you help me get my Honda, instead of, can you help me get, blank, whatever name. I can't come up with a name right now for a car. Anyways, my point is, like, I know the name thing, the Slave One, has been like this big controversy ongoing, but it feels like they're just not gonna address a name. They're gonna call it the fire spray slave gunship fire spray, right? Because that's the type of ship it is, and that's basically where they're gonna leave it. Which I guess makes sense, right? To be honest with you, I don't know. Why would Boba Fett give it a nickname? It's his ship. He knows what it is. Everyone knows what it is. What's the nickname for? Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. I know some people are gonna be really bothered. They're gonna be like, no, it's fire spray. They called it the fire spray, not the Slave One. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. You gotta just get over it. They never used the name in the movies before this. It was just, I think they used it in the Clone Wars maybe twice. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like, just get over it, man. It doesn't change anything about the ship. The ship is still the ship. Speaking of which, they take it to, they shoot down the speeder bikes, and then they go to the Sarlacc pit because he thinks that's where his armor's still gonna be. And when they look down the Sarlacc pit, I don't actually see the beak, right? And I was like, oh no, are they like retconning the beak, which was already a retcon? Because originally the Sarlacc pit did not have a beak, and it wasn't until the special editions in 1997 that the beak was added to the Sarlacc pit. And then when they looked down, there's no beak, and I was like, oh no. But then, of course, surprise, the beak is there, and it turns out the beak can actually like retract way deep down into it, and it like grabs onto them. But luckily Fennec Shan's able to like get one of those, what is it called? What's the name? The grenades that it drops. I forget. I can't remember. Can't believe I forgot the name of the thing. Anyways, they drop one of those bombs into the beak of the Sarlacc, which I think ultimately kills it for good. Which makes sense, right? Like that definitely would kill it, right? So there you go. Also, yeah, I'm glad they didn't retcon the beak, because that would have just made it more complicated. I know some people hate the beak. Some people are fine with the beak. The beak is there in the special editions. That's what George Lucas decided to add, so the beak exists, right? So like, I think they got a good compromise of like, oh, the beak is not always shown because it can retract inside the Sarlacc pit, but it is there. I think that's a good compromise. Let's see. Oh, there's a good moment with Boba and his bantha, which I know a lot of people are gonna love. The bantha, like Boba's eating something and the bantha kind of like licks its lips and like, and so he feeds the bantha, and then he has to release the bantha. Like, all right, go on, girl. Go make baby banthas. So I know a lot of people. There's gonna be like fan art of Boba Fett taking care of this little bantha, and that bantha going on to make baby banthas, and that's gonna be a whole fan art thing. I can already tell that. Anyways, so yeah, basically we get to the point where they get the ship. They talk about how they're gonna make a crime family. They're gonna make our own house, and that's essentially where they fast forward. They basically fast forward from there. He doesn't have his armor yet, and that is the only question we actually have left, which I don't think they're gonna end up answering. How did he know that Mando was on Tython, right? Like, how did he know that's where they were? Because that's where they ultimately end up finding him in his armor. They don't really answer that, which is fine. I'm okay with that not being answered. I don't think you need a full another flashback segment to answer that, because they then kind of cut to when he kills Bib Fortuna and him sitting on the throne, and you know, like they kind of like do like a montage cut of like all the stuff that catches us all the way up to modern day, and then he wakes up. And by the way, I think they're telling us that the flashbacks are now finally over, because when he gets out, the robot is like, congratulations, you are fully healed, which means he doesn't need the Bacta anymore. You know, so there you go. I think that kind of answers why he's been in the Bacta tank so frequently, is because, like, you know, he got burnt a second time by going back into the Sarlacc pit trying to find his armor. I didn't find anything, and they had to like pour water on him. He's like, you're burning, you know. So yeah, just frequent acid burns and living in the desert with the Tuscan people, you know. It's like he was beat up, you know, he was a beat up guy, but now they're saying that he is completely healed, so he doesn't need these frequent back to tank baths anymore, which I think is the show's way of saying that, okay, flashbacks are done. This was, you know, this one spent a lot of time on the flashbacks, but I'm pretty sure it's over now. So there you go. The next 3 episodes, I think, are going to be full modern day plot. Okay, now we do finally get back to the modern day in this episode, and basically Boba has now invited everyone from the territories around this place that used to be loyal to Jabba, and then because of Bib Fortuna's, I guess, incompetence, they all kind of separated and did their own thing. And basically what he says is like, all right, you can help me, and then they all kind of refuse, right? And he's like, okay, fine, you don't have to help me, just stay neutral, because I'm gonna have to go to war with the Pikes. The Pike Syndicate, you know, they're basically eventually going to take over this planet. They've made Tatooine part of its spice trade route, right? Which, you know, like, that makes sense, right? On a galactic scale, it's like, okay, the Pikes are trying to, you know, take over this entire territory of the galaxy, basically. You know, he's like, just stay neutral while I go to war with the Pikes. There is a good moment with Black Chrysanthemum, and I feel like we get some more action with Black Chrysanthemum. I feel like he's really, like, he gets his justice of, like, you know, some people were complaining that he got beat up by he got beat up by the Power Rangers, as people were saying, which, you know, okay, he didn't get beat up by the Power Rangers. He got there was a trapdoor. He didn't get beat up, but anyways, he gets his justice. He rips off the arm of a Trandoshan. There's this whole kind of bar brawl just because he's drinking and he's seeing these Trandoshans, and of course there's like that ancient species rivalry between Wookiees and Trandoshans, right? And Boba basically offers him a job. So, you know, just like I thought would happen, like, okay, yeah, Chrysanthemum's now gonna be on his side. And they end it with saying that, like, okay, well, I got plenty of credits. We need to buy some muscle. You know, we need to buy more people, which I'm imagining is where we're gonna get some interesting cameos. I can only imagine, you know, because now that they have credits, now they're looking to hire people to help them fight the Pikes. I have to imagine that this is where we're gonna get our bounty hunter cameos. You know, this is where we're gonna get Bosk and Dengar and whoever else is still alive. If there's still IG-11, if he's still, wait, is it IG-11 or IG-88? Now I'm getting them confused in my head. Anyways, one of the IGs, the one that's still alive. This is where I think they're finally gonna bring in the other bounty hunters, all the cameos that we've kind of been waiting to see, because they need to hire people. And this makes perfect sense for them to start hiring the people that he knows from his line of work, right? So there you go. Basically, Boba Fett is now no longer the bounty hunter. He's now the guy hiring bounty hunters, probably. I mean, he did hire one this episode with Black Chrysanthemum, so there you go. And yeah, this basically feels like finally the setup for the ending of the show. You know, it feels like now we're gonna get nothing but the present day stuff, and here we go. Now, to be completely honest with you, looking at the scope of the show, you know, this being episode 4, us having 3 episodes left, it does feel like episode 3, the last episode, really was, you know, just so they could have 7 episodes. You know, did anything super substantial happen in the last episode that could not have kind of just been absorbed into like episode 2 or something? I don't know. But overall, I like where we're at now than where we were in the last episode. It feels like we've made a lot more progress, and I know a lot of the flashback stuff happened, but like it does feel like at the very least we have his motivations, we know specifically how he got here and what happened, and it feels like we're done with this now. The flashbacks are over. This was like the end of the flashbacks. I know some people really hated them, and okay, fair enough, I guess, but it's done with now, right? But yeah, I'm excited to where we can go from here. I know some people are going to be so bothered by this episode because we spend so long with the flashbacks, and they just wanted forward progress, right? But I do feel like this episode gives us, it feels like the next 7 days where we're going to be kind of stuck like watching these reactions on the internet, the Twitter reactions and the YouTube reactions of everyone complaining about this thing or that thing. It feels like we're in a better place with that stuff than we were with the last episode. The last episode, we had like a lot of stuff that people complained about, and they went hard, against these episodes, against that episode. And this episode, it feels like we're in a much better place. This episode gave us more positive things, than it did negative things, I think. So that I guess that's just the thing, is that like people I think are still adjusting to the fact that this is not the Boba Fett badass smackdown hour where he's gonna destroy everyone in his path and take over Tatooine. It's not that. This is him building a tribe, learning how to work with people, learning how to work within the system itself, trying to be better than Bib Fortuna or Jabba the Hutt was. He's not trying to be a badass. He's trying to just be smarter about this, trying to actually be a leader who can work with other people and not he's not trying to like conquer, he's trying to lead, and ultimately I think that's what's going to end up happening. Like he said, these other families here, they're not stupid enough to not realize that the Pikes are going to end up taking over everything. Like they're like, oh, the Pike Syndicate only is going only after your territory, why should we get involved, right? But I think what they're definitely going to realize by the end of this show is that, like, okay, if they don't stop the Pikes, if they don't work with Boba Fett, the Pikes are going to take over everyone's territory. There's no reason to think it's going to stop with Boba Fett. It's gonna go everywhere. Why would the Pikes not try to take over the whole thing, So I think that's what's going to end up happening. They're these other families are going to be like, oh shit, we should just help Boba Fett because these Pikes are not going to just stop there, and everyone's going to come together under Boba Fett and stop the Pikes, and that's really what's happening in this show. And we're going to get plenty of other bounty hunter cameos that he ends up hiring to help along the way and stuff like that. Now, the other question, of course, is there still this other entity above the Pikes? Because somebody, maybe it was Crimson Dawn, maybe it was someone else, somebody promised this territory to the Pikes, and that's why the Hutts left. That's why the twins went away, was because they're like, oh, this area was promised to this other syndicate, our bad, and then they left. Which I have to imagine that the Hutts are not gone for good. They're probably going to be back at some point. But that is still like a lingering kind of thing that I have to imagine at the very last episode, maybe setting up for a season 2. Are we getting another season? I don't know. It sometimes feels like we're getting another season, but then other episodes it feels like, no, this is like this is it, so I can't tell yet. But yeah, that might be a thing that ends up being answered, at the very, very end. It's like, okay, here's who was in charge of everyone. Here's who was telling the Hutts and the Pikes what to do, right? But overall, yeah, like I said, I enjoyed this episode a lot more than episode 3. I know it was a lot of flashbacks. Not everyone's going to be happy about that, but I was actually fine with it, especially because the implication being that it's done. He's fully healed. He doesn't need the bacta tank. and we kind of fast forwarded to present day. They didn't show Din Djarin or Grogu or any of that stuff in this flashback, which they don't need to. We can just watch the episode. You know what I mean? They don't need to show him getting the Tython and that whole thing. We've seen that. We know. You just watch the episode. It's there. So yeah. Now there are, of course, there were rumors that Din Djarin was gonna show up. Maybe that still happens. Maybe they give him a shout out and be like, hey, we helped you with your thing, come help us with our thing real quick, come on over here. Maybe that's how this ends up playing out. I don't know. Now I also have to imagine, real quick before I get out of here, I have to imagine that the Pikes are gonna also hire their own guys, which I half expected to cut over to the Pike Syndicate and see that they've also hired some of their own muscle to try and help take out Boba, right? And that's where I'm expecting to see our Cad Banes and other people, right? Other cameos that would fight against Boba. So we'll see how this all plays out. Like I said, I'm much happier with this episode than I was with last episode. I feel like this is going to end most people on a better foot. I will say this: the people who are angry that this is not the Boba Fett taking names, kicking ass kind of show, that's not what this show is, I think it's it's too late for that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the next 3 episodes are gonna probably be some of that, but what I mean is those people are already gone. Those people who wanted that to be the entirety of the show and for it to not really be much else than that, I think most of those people have already turned away from the show, and they're already like, this isn't what I wanted, blah, and they've already turned their backs on it. So I don't know. I think those they have already made up their minds about the show. But I'm enjoying this. I'm much more on board this episode than I was with last one. I feel like we're finally here at the what's the word, the crest of the crescendo thing, we're here at the ending, the third act, the climax of the plot, right? It feels like we're right there, and now it's gonna happen. Anyways, I really like this. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you think the fandom will react for the next 7 days. I don't know. I'm hoping for a better reaction. Yeah, let me know how you guys feel about this episode, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.